So, there's this research paper that asks a question that's about as blunt as it gets. Who lives if Earth dies? In this explainer, we're going to dig into the evidence it lays out and take a look at its pretty wild proposals for our future.
The paper kicks things off with this one. Powerful image from NASA. And honestly, it tells you pretty much everything you need to know. For 650,000 years, CO2 levels went up, they went down, but they never ever crossed that line. Until now. See that crazy vertical spike on the right? Yeah, that's us. That's right now. And that single picture is why we're even having this conversation.
And hey, this isn't some fringe idea we're talking about. The paper pulls this quote straight from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Their conclusion? It's unequivocal. The warming is real. It's happening.
Okay, so what does unequivocal warming actually look like, out there in the real world? Well, the paper breaks down some of the key warning signs that scientists are tracking all over the globe.
It's like a giant domino effect, really. The air is getting hotter. In fact, the 10 warmest years ever have all happened since 2005. That heat is getting sucked up by the oceans. That, in turn, is melting these gigantic ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica. We're seeing glaciers disappear from the Alps to the Andes, and at the same time, we're getting way more extreme weather. It's a complete systemic issue.
So, when you're facing a list of problems that big, what on earth does a solution even look like? Well, this is where the paper shifts gears from just outlining the problem to proposing a solution. And it's not just a minor tweak, it's a total reimagining of how we live.
The author, Arun Bakshi, calls his idea the Green Revolution 2. And let's be clear, this isn't just about encouraging people to recycle a little more. This is a blueprint for a top-to-bottom societal overhaul.
The whole point is to weave environmental responsibility directly into our laws, our schools, our whole way of life. The goal is to make taking care of the planet something that isn't just encouraged, but is actually required. And this really gets to the heart of it. Just think about that for a second. Imagine a world where being environmentally responsible is just as basic, just as fundamental as paying your taxes or getting a driver's license. All right, so what would this Green Revolution 2 actually look like for you and me? The paper gets into some really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty radical ideas, and it all starts in our schools.
Okay, get this. The proposal starts with education. Instead of, say, a final paper for a class, what if every single student had to plant a tree?
And for the whole semester, it's their job to take care of it, to nurture it. And then, at the end of the term, their final grade is literally based on how healthy that tree is. The whole idea is to create this deep, personal sense of connection to the environment right from a young age.
And this idea doesn't just stop at the classroom. It follows you all the way home, right down to the very foundations of our houses.
Now, this is really interesting. On the left, you've got a typical home with a concrete slab foundation. It basically makes the ground underneath it useless. But the proposal on the right suggests a new law. All new houses have to be built on pillars. This would leave most of the land underneath totally green and fertile, turning every single home into its own little green space.
From there, the idea just keeps expanding. It's about embedding this required environmental action into every major milestone in our lives, making it something you literally can't avoid.
I mean, just look at this list. Under this proposed system, if you want a new driver's license, you have to plant a tree. Applying for a passport, plant a tree. Getting a promotion at work, enrolling your kid in school, buying a new car, all of it would be tied to this one simple green requirement.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds kind of extreme, right? Well, the paper argues it has to be, because the scale of the problem we're facing is it's immense. The numbers tell the story.
So the data here is pretty sobering. Every year, globally, we pump out about 44 billion tons of CO2. Now, back in 2005, the estimate was that there were about 400 billion trees on the entire planet. But to absorb just 1 year's worth of our CO2 emissions, the paper calculates we would need, well, a lot more than that.
Let's just pause on this number for a second. 400 billion. That was the estimated number of trees on the whole planet back in 2005. It sounds like an absolutely massive number, right? Okay, so hold that number in your head. 400 billion.
Now look at this. To absorb our yearly CO2 emissions, the paper calculates we'd need nearly 1.5 quadrillion trees. Remember that 400 billion we started with? This number is almost 4,000 times bigger. The gap is almost impossible to wrap your head around. And this mathematical reality is why the author believes we need a full-blown green revolution. But at the end of the day, the paper argues that even with all these massive sweeping policies, the biggest hurdle isn't planting trees or building houses on pillars. It's all in our heads. It's about changing the way we think.
Yeah, the author is super clear about this. You can't just pass a law and make people care. The real goal of all these policies is to force a new habit, in the hope that over time, that habit actually changes how we feel and think about our relationship with the planet. And that's the real challenge.
But the author doesn't just leave us with the scale of the problem. He offers up this piece of perspective. Small beginning and efforts are the stepping stones for the big changes. All these huge systemic ideas, they all have to start somewhere, right?
And that really leaves us with this final thought. This whole paper is basically a giant thought experiment. It's asking us to imagine a world where saving the planet isn't just an option, it's a fundamental part of everything we do. It forces us to ask ourselves, what would it really take to make that happen? And what if that first step doesn't come from some new law, but from us?